But now let's look at the claim that Christmas was patterned after Saturnalia, the Roman festival in honor of the false god Saturn. The claim is that Christians culturally appropriated the symbols of Saturnalia as a way of replacing the pagan festival with a Christian one, and using it as an evangelization tool to celebrate the birth of Christ instead of the revelry of Saturn. And so even if that's true, my question to you is, so what? Now I'm not even conceding that, but let's just say that Christians did co-opt Saturnalia in order to Christianize it. That would only be a good thing. Okay, Christians have always tried to replace pagan holidays with Christian ones as a way of evangelizing and Christianizing the nations, and that's a good thing. Now, you don't want to, we're not saying go and appropriate people's culture and just take over everyone's society. That's not what I'm talking about, but these wicked pagan kind of, worshiping, this false god Saturn and turning the social order upside down, kind of like what Antifa and BLM and our, our socialist left woke people are trying to do in our culture. That's kind of pagan, in fact. Trying to, take the authority, take God, take the man, the husband, and just reverse all of that in our culture, and gender roles, and all of that is being reversed. But that's actually Roman and pagan. And so the thing about Saturnalia being replaced by Christmas is that it's not even true, because Saturnalia wasn't even celebrated on December 25th. The festival of Saturnalia was a 1-week festival of revelry which began on December 17th and lasted through December 23rd. And so you can look that up historically. Those were the dates that Saturnalia was practiced. And so if Christians were trying to supplant Saturnalia, wouldn't they have made it a week-long celebration from December 17th to the 23rd? Instead, they chose December 25th. Now, no one is claiming today, at least most people aren't, that Jesus was definitively born on December 25th. We simply don't know. But there were calculations that the early Christians used based on various, times of the year and the festivals and when Jesus could have been born. And they narrowed it down to December 25th. And a lot of that was based on various traditions. They believed that many prophets were, the date of their death was the same day as the date of their conception. And that was just kind of like an extra biblical thing that they believed. And so based on that and basing it on when Jesus was crucified and when all of that happened, they calculated that down to December 25th. Now, we don't know, what day it is. But we have chosen as a country, as the world really, and as the church, to just choose that day to celebrate the birth of Christ. And so we can acknowledge that's not which came first, which, was Christmas a copycat of Sol Invictus, or was Sol Invictus a copycat of Christmas? You hear claims about that on both sides of the argument. And some claim that Christmas came first because around that same time, in the early 3rd century, which would have been right around that same date of 274 AD, Christian theologian Hippolytus of Rome referred to December 25th as Jesus' birth date in his commentary in the book of Daniel. So you can look that up. December 25th was touted as Jesus' birth date as early as the 3rd century. And in fact, December 25th was not established as Sol Invictus Day until 274 AD. So those dates could have been, who knows if Hippolytus actually wrote that first, because Hippolytus wrote about the birth of Christ as December 25th and as a celebration of Christ's birth a half century before Aurelius established Sol Invictus in 274. And because we see from history that Hippolytus lived between 170 and 235 AD. So he died and wrote about Christmas and December 25th before Sol Invictus was established as a pagan holiday in 274 AD. Now, they might have been celebrating it prior to that, but it really just became the established religion, or the established festival of Rome. It was really Aurelius who established it and invented that. There were other sun gods that they worshipped prior to that, but Sol Invictus in particular for December 25th was 274 AD, after the death of Hippolytus, who wrote about Christmas. But whichever came first, the fact is that Invictus and Saturnalia are irrelevant today. Okay, whereas Christmas and the birth of Christ lives on. We're still talking about Jesus Christ and his birth, death, his life, his resurrection 2,000 years after the fact, but nobody's worshiping Saturn. Nobody's worshiping the sun anymore. I mean, if they are, it's a very fringe, extreme minority who are just out there and kind of crazy probably. But, whereas we see that the birth of Christ lives on. And so even if the Christians were attempting to co-opt Roman holidays in order to proselytize the culture for Christ, well, it worked. And that's a good thing. But we have evidence that it was potentially even, was being celebrated before these Roman holidays. And so I think it's a win-win either way. Now, clearly the Bible, again, it doesn't state what the date is, but there were reasons for it. And we simply don't know for sure. But collectively, we've chosen this day. And as far as the claim that the false gods Tammuz or Mithras were also born on December 25th. You hear that all the time. I'll speak to non-believers, to atheists, like, oh, well, Jesus is just a copycat religion of Mithras, who came before, and they were born on December 25th, and, they were born to a virgin, and they died, and they resurrected, and the whole Christmas story, the whole gospel is a copycat of Mithras. So that's the claim. But Mithras, again, is another myth. The claim is that both Mithras, the Persian and the Roman sun deity, and Tammuz, the Sumerian fertility god, were also born on December 25th. They had the same story. You guys have probably heard this claim, right? And, well, it's actually very simple to answer this because such claims have no basis in documented history. There is absolutely no historical evidence for either the existence of Mithras or Tammuz as real people, the way that we have for Jesus. And, we have tons of historicity, tons of historical evidence for the life, the death, and the burial, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. As far as resurrection, we have, 500 plus eyewitness testimonies in his day, plus all the writers and, people that wrote about it later. But there is zero historical evidence for the supposed virgin birth, death, burial, or any of that of Tammuz, or even that they were born on December 25th, because a lot of people make that claim, and they quote one source that leads to another source, and they're just quoting article upon article. But when you go to the source article, it's just a claim and an assertion that's being made, and there's no actual historical evidence for December 25th or any of the other claims. And so these are all claims with no historical data. They're simply mythical claims with no basis in historical fact. So next time that someone tells you that Jesus is a copy of these pagan religions, ask them for historical evidence for their claims, not some article online that makes the claim or makes the assertion, because anybody can make that assertion. And so you can look it up. Try to find that they were born on December 25th, or, that there's any actual historical crossovers. We just don't have the data for such claims. And so Mithras and Tammuz are literal myths. That's all they are. It's just a myth. Whereas Jesus, with Jesus, no serious, reputable historian, even the secular historical the historians deny the existence of Jesus Christ as an historical figure. Some try, but the facts don't back them up. The claims for Mithras and Tammuz are tenuous at best, but we have both Christian and non-Christian sources for the birth, life, and death of Jesus Christ. We have the prominent Jewish historian, Flavius Josephus, who affirms the existence of Christ, as well as the Roman secular historian Tacitus, who refers to Jesus in the context of Nero's persecutions of Christians and mentions Jesus' crucifixion under Pontius Pilate. All of these are recorded and written about. We also have Pliny the Younger and many other historians that wrote about Jesus. And we have more evidence for the historicity of Jesus than of Shakespeare or of other historical figures, of even like someone like Abraham Lincoln. Like, we have more documents pertaining to Jesus Christ than any other figure in known history. And so don't fall for the claims, ask for the evidence.